This is a question I'm constantly asked, which means there are countless people out there whose past experiences prevent them from fully flourishing in their lives. So if you're one of these people, you can take solace in the fact that you're not alone. For myself, I can't imagine a person who doesn't have some past experience that they regret or feel guilty about. And for this, I'd like to offer a wonderful technique I call recognizing our limitations. In this technique, we use reason to look back objectively to assess our past in its larger context. We begin by recognizing and accepting that it's our common human limitations that is the real cause behind our shortcomings. For our current state of being, both our abilities and limitations are dependent upon a long list of causes and conditions. This practice is built upon the premise that at each moment we are relatively at our best, performing at our current peak level. But this doesn't negate the fact that at each moment we also have limitations that impede that performance. Limitations of ignorance, immaturity, egotism, self-control, selfishness, vitality, and afflictive emotions. In other words, we are at our best within the context of our limitations. Feelings of guilt and regret arise when we look back in hindsight and judge our past choices and actions by our current level of abilities, which is both unfair and illogical. For example, I remember when my mother passed away. Although I did a good job caring for her, I still had feelings of guilt, thinking that I could have done more to help and I could have spent more time with her. But the fact is, at that moment, I was younger and I didn't have the understanding and maturity that I do today. That me in the past was simply not capable of more. That was my peak level of maturity, caring, and responsibility at that moment of my life. Now, many may disagree, believing that they had times in their past where they knew the right thing to do and chose freely not to do it, and they believe they could have done better. But I don't believe this is true. For example, when someone feels guilty that they chose to watch television all day instead of working, it's their natural limitations, their lack of willpower, motivation, focus, and vitality that is truly to blame. At that time, that was simply their current level of motivation. And of course, it's the transcendence of these limitations that's our true aim. This technique begins with the arising of a memory that you feel guilt, regret, embarrassment, or shame about. As the memory and emotion arises, you accept it by saying, yes, I'm experiencing the very common human emotion of guilt. Next, use reason to recognize and remember accurately the level of your limitations at that time. Look at it objectively and accept the fact that, like it or not, that was your level of performance at that time, and accept that you were simply not capable of more. For example, let's say you bullied someone and you feel regret because of it. The first thing you do is accept it by saying, yes, I bullied someone and I accept full responsibility for it. Now you apply reason by thinking, yes, I bullied someone, which is a very common behavior. People often strike out at others when they themselves are in pain. I recognize that despite the fact that I'd act differently today, that was me at my best in relation to my limitations at that time. In another example, say you stole a candy bar when you were young and you feel guilty about it whenever the thought arises. The first thing you do is accept it by saying, yes, I stole. Now you apply reason by thinking, yes, I stole when I was a child. This is something that is common with children and is often part of the process of learning right from wrong. And since I've not stolen anything since then, clearly it was a valuable lesson that helped me to become an honest person. It's through accepting the incremental stages of our development and recognizing our limitations within those stages that we gain freedom from our past and learn to flourish in the present. Lastly, I have to be clear that the aim of this practice is to relieve suffering. The premise that we are not to be blamed for our past action is an old debate. Clearly, we need to hold ourselves and others accountable for our actions. But to continuously punish ourselves for things that we did in the past, things that we can't change, doesn't benefit anyone and merely fills the world with heartbroken people.